All right, so to move on to project narrative, the point that I was trying to make is with project justifications, you're pitching to the authority why you need to be funded. That is different than your LWCF project narrative. That is not about why you should be funded. It's all, the application is all objective. Staff are not looking to see which grant is better simply because of what's being done. It's strictly, you're proposing this is how it scores, and it's done. This gets into the construction items. All right, so if you have you may have elements that need to be renovated, and we'll go through this in the definitions, but I'll cover it now because it keeps coming up. Let's say that you have an old tennis court that is on your park site. It's been there since the 1970s. You can choose to renovate it, which would replace it, you can choose to renovate it, which means that you're going to put another tennis court right on top of where it was, or update that tennis court. Or you can choose to replace it, which you're saying that this tennis court that was built in the 1970s is no longer meeting the need of the public. That tennis court is going to go away. You're going to now replace it with pickleball. It's going to be on the other side of the park, but still within the park boundaries. And yes, you can do that. You're essentially replacing it with something else to meet public demand changes, and you can relocate it to somewhere else. Renovate means that the element is staying the same, but being updated. Yes, any other item, as long as it is outdoor. I think that goes without saying. That I use pickleball as an example. It is up to your public demand to say what the thing is shifting to. And we'll go into that in more depth. We are not expecting that you're going to replace one element with the exact same element, especially if your park demand has changed or your jurisdiction of that element has changed, and you don't need whatever that was anymore. All right, so next up, back onto this. You're telling us within the project narrative, you're telling us why that has to happen. What each one of these? Why do you have to do site prep? Why do you have to do demolition? In this case, for the example of the tennis court, why are you're having to demolish a tennis court? Why? Because it is past the point of repair. Because it is so old, you're demolishing that old tennis court, and then you're going to replace it with something else elsewhere within the park. That is what needs to be in here. Why are you doing this? What are you replacing it with, and what is the demand for it? Residents want new bocce courts. That's why you're building a bocce court. Residents say that they want a new bocce court. The bocce court is going to have it's going to be regulation, it's going to have this type of structure as part of it. It is much more about the physical element that is being built than arguing for the funding for it. So are there questions about that? Because I think that is a substantial switch from Partif. Partif, you're giving a sales pitch, why you need the funding. LWCF, you're telling what is going to happen and why it is happening. I'll give you all a second to ask questions about that. While we're doing that, another example is a renovation. You can do this, and I'm going to use this just as an example. You have a ball field that you built in the 1970s. The ball field's still in pretty good shape. You've kept up with it, but you've had increase in population or whatever in the area, and now you need to build new bleachers, new press box around it, you need new lighting on it. That is a renovation. Those aren't new recreation elements that you're putting in. It is increasing what is already out there. You have an existing tennis court that was built in the 1970s. You need to resurface it, you need to put lighting around it, you need to put fencing around it. That is a renovation. You can do that. What you cannot do is, you had two LWCF items at this park. It was a ball field and a tennis court. You're not touching those. They're going to stay as is, and you want to build something new out there. You want to build a brand new splash pad. You can't do that. That's a new element. We're not looking at new elements. Please, for right now, look to PARTA for your new elements. We're trying to fix up what is out there. You do this, make sure that everything lines up and use these categories. And there's a reason why, is these categories line up with your cost categories. And these cost categories then line up with your SF424C that you have to fill out. So that's why you can see demolition and removal, equipment, new construction, site work. This is a federal form. You're not going to fill out every one of these line items, but what we're coaching you to do is to fill out the information that you're going to need here on your cost estimates, that these categories then line up with the federal form that you have to fill out. We cannot put the forms into here and still make them fillable for you. That's why in places throughout the application, we're referencing where you can go get the federal forms. So you should be able to go directly to these sites and download the forms that you need. SF424 is kind of a summary page. It's going to seem like you're duplicating information that you've already given. It's going to work out your percent match here. Make sure that your numbers here are lining up elsewhere. So I'm going to take a brief second. If you have any questions so far about the project narrative or the SF424C, which, like I said, is kind of the summary information for your project budget. Contingencies on 424. Yeah, good point. So what you're going to see is the 424C has categories here that you're not going to be able to use. In particular, we've told you you cannot do contingency. This SF424C, and you're going to see in the SF424, are blanket federal forms, which means that the federal government uses them for more than just Land and Water Conservation Fund. There is no specific form that lines up with Lwcf for this, but we have been directed by the National Park Service to use this. So just because it says contingency here does not mean that you can have contingency in your project. Thank you for that.